Perimeter College. Welcome to our program today, which is part of the Mario A.J. Bennekin Black History Symposium. Our overall symposium theme this year is the challenges and triumphs of the Black working class in America. We are so glad you could join us today or at any point during this week. My name is Sally Robertson, and I teach theater here at the Clarkston campus at Perimeter College, and I will serve as facilitator of today's presentation and discussion with the Americolor Opera Alliance. Before I introduce our speaker and singers, I wanted to share some housekeeping items. I encourage you to visit the Bennekin Symposium webpage to learn more about our symposium. The address is perimeter.gsu.edu/Bennekin-symposium. While at the webpage, I invite you to make a tax-deductible donation to the Bennekin Symposium Fund by clicking the Give Now tab at the top of the page. And we really can't do this without your help. Every dollar that you give to the Bennekin Symposium allows us to do these wonderful performances, presentations, and engagements every year. So please give whatever you can. We will say thank you in advance. There will be a brief talkback session after the presentation, so stick around for that if you're interested. Students, please make sure you've logged in on the pin pad in the gallery lobby before you leave so we know you attended. Faculty, you can also log in and staff because it just gives us an idea of who is here. You just need your campus ID, so that's the part before your email. Please set your phones to silent at this time, and please try not to answer them if you can help it for the next hour and a half or so. It's just nicer not to disturb the performance. And please refrain from taking photos or videos during the performance. Also, after the presentation today, there will be a reception in the gallery, and we thank McGraw-Hill and Macmillan Learning, who have graciously provided the food and beverage for the reception. Our symposium closing event is today, and it's a performance and talk with the Americolor Opera Alliance. Founded in 1999 by composer Sharon Willis, the Americolor Opera Alliance emerged into the cultural landscape with the debut of The Opera Singer in April 2000 in Atlanta, Georgia. This work showcased the talents of over 50 singers, dancers, actors, plus a 16-piece chamber orchestra. Since that beginning, the Americolor Opera Alliance has become known for innovation, inclusivity, and artistic excellence. Driven by the success of The Opera Singer, Sharon Willis crafted a tapestry of original works that captivate audiences and reflect African and Afrocentric cultures. Alongside original compositions, the Alliance has presented renditions of classic operas such as Mozart's The Magic Flute and Bizet's Carmen, as well as concert version of Gershwin's Porgy and Bess and Mozart's Così fan tutte. For nearly 25 years, the company has been a pillar of the greater Atlanta community, providing performance opportunities for artists, educational productions for schools, and projects for churches. Under AOA Theater Arts, the company has tackled social issues through plays authored by Dr. Willis, addressing topics from women's rights to medical awareness. We are so thrilled to have the Americolor Opera Alliance and Dr. Sharon Willis here today, and she will also be narrating a bit between the singing performances, so I think you guys are in for a treat today. So please welcome to the stage Dr. Willis and the Americolor Opera Alliance singers.
Professor Bennekin. This is fabulous. We will not go back over what Dr. Robertson has said, but I do have 5 beautiful singers here and a violinist, and I'd like to introduce them now. We have Miss Deborah McCrennan, who is a retired registered nurse. We have, and that's right now she's going to be doing contralto, but that's my mezzo and contralto. Then I have Michael McBride, who is a computer or software programmer. And baritone. Then I have Kathy J. Garrett, my soprano, and she is an international opera singer and a graduate of Marshall College. And then Dr. Mel Foster, who is my artistic director and tenor. And of course, I'm going to save the best for last. You may not agree with me, but this is Larissa R.G. Price, who works for the IRS. And she is a mezzo-soprano. I really love the theme, the challenges and triumphs of the Black working class in America. And we're musicians, and you say, well, how does that fit into this theme? Very easily, very easily. If I say to you, opera, Black singers, classical, that's the answer. Why? Because in this genre of music, culturally, it's not popular. In fact, opera across America is considered an elite type of activity or elite type of genre of music, whereas in Europe, it's mainstay. Here, it's something else. You have to be a certain type of society to appreciate it, which I do not agree. Yes, there are a lot of challenges. It's very difficult to be a Black classical singer. In fact, I wrote my first opera, you see this board here, the opera singer, to celebrate my 50th birthday. What I wanted was to celebrate not having a birthday bash where everybody got drunk and went home. I wanted to have something that was memorable, something that meant legacy, something that would speak to a culminating activity of my life as a singer, as a pianist, as a director, as a church musician, as a poet, as a dancer. All of those things came together in a nice little ball, and they said, well, I don't know why I woke up one day and said, I'm going to write me an opera. I had performed in operas before, but I've always been a composer since I was the age of 15. Now, what would I have to say on the stage? And my English teacher would always say, write about what you know about, or what you've researched, or what you've lived about. And so I have done all of those things, and I came up with the opera singer. That was the name of it. And what was the subtitle of that? The opera singer, based upon the challenges and difficulties of Blacks in classical music. And then when I saw this title, it works right in there. Then I have to ask myself, with these classical singers that I just introduced, I have to ask them, why do Black classical singers sing the blues? We don't sing the blues, we feel the blues. Because we are rejected a lot of times, or not accepted, because the gift that has been given, why should I betray it? Because I don't have a rhythm and blues voice. I don't have a jazz voice. And some classical singers can do both. I have friends that can pop one day and the next thing they're like this. But that's not the average singer. We spend years cultivating our instrument to do what? To do what? When we knock on the doors don't open. And when I realized, when I wrote my first opera, who's going to perform this? Am I going to go to the Metropolitan Opera House and say, Sharon Willis has an opera for you, fresh off the press? No, I wasn't known. Why would they do that? They just let us in to perform on a regular basis. So for me, it was just the gratification of getting all of the singers that I knew in Atlanta, I had a part for. And in fact, one of the songs in it, Is There a Part for Me? So I write this opera, and the opera singer is about opera singers having a difficult time, but I also thought it was very important to talk historically about singers and where we began as classical singers. It's not something that just happened in the 21st century. It's been out there a long time. So when I say, why do classical singers of African American heritage sing the blues? It's because how difficult and how challenging it is to be successful. I've written 16 operas, and those 16 operas have to do with the American and Afrocentric experience. Yet I am wise enough, I believe, to know that you cannot put or separate history. Black history is American history. Yes, we have little silos, but you don't become that history. That history does not speak alone. You cannot separate history. It all belongs together. Now, some people are nervous about that. When you say, oh, I don't want to talk about slavery, Well, that's part of the history. You cannot escape it. You can clean your house and put all the garbage under the rug, but the garbage is still there. But here, we're celebrating that culture. We do that. My seventh opera, and I will be presenting excerpts from 4 of these operas. My seventh opera was dedicated to Madam C.J. Walker. You know that she became America's first black woman millionaire doing hair or selling hair products. And she died not really a millionaire, but in that day and time, to have that kind of money was equivalent to being a millionaire. And I wrote this for Kathy Gary, who's a soprano here. And one of the songs that Madam C.J. sings is the Broken Hearted Blues. Why do we sing the blues? Madam C.J., before her success, had a lot of challenges. People don't realize that she was married 3 times. She was married by the time she was 14 years old. Because in Mississippi, it was very difficult. She lost her parents. She was an orphan. And her sister didn't want her. It wasn't the sister, but the sister's husband. And in order for Madam C.J. to make it, she marries out of her troubles. Many women have done that. She marries out, but just as she marries in and she becomes very successful, she realizes, I can dump him too. So she divorces everyone she marries except the person who dies. So here to sing, and I'm trying to tell her to come to the mic, here to sing the Broken Hearted Blues. I want you to listen to what Madam C.J. says. She's describing her life in this song of the blues, where she comes from and the dreams that she's had and the struggles that she's had. Madam C.J., the Broken Hearted Blues. Kathy again. was bitter. She didn't know how she was going to make it. But then she becomes the richest black woman in America at that particular time. So she triumphed. She took that challenge and she triumphed. And it was all based on dreams. And so my theme today, even as I'm speaking about those challenges, it's always about the dream. Because I believe when you dream, the dream transforms the dreamer, or it should. It shouldn't just say, well, I'm going to dream about something and then just hope by osmosis it's going to come alive. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a plan to make that happen. If I ask the audience out here, how many of you have heard of Elizabeth Taylor? Most of us over a certain age would raise our hand. We realize that Elizabeth Taylor was a great actress and married to Richard Burton, and she played Cleopatra. In fact, she was a child star, playing a role in National Velvet, and did all those types of things. But if I ask you to tell me about Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield, you'd say, no, I don't know the Greenfield. Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield was a black woman enslaved at that particular time in Natchez, Mississippi. But she had a gift. She could sing. And her mistress set her free before slavery ended in 1865. And she ended up in Pennsylvania, the city or the state of brotherly love. And what they discovered that this woman had this beautiful lyric soprano voice, and yet they mocked her when she would sing because she was so tall. This woman stood 6'2" and was about 200 pounds. And yet, and with this very, very dark complexion, and she stands on the stage, and they dub her the Black Swan after Jenny Lind. It's always have to be after a white counterpart. But sometimes they called Jenny Lind the Swedish Nightingale, but they called Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield the Black Swan. There are other singers like that. Marie Salika Williams. She was the first to sing at the White House for president. There was Matilda Cicieretta Jones. She became the richest vaudeville black singer in America in the late 19th century, early 20th century. She almost, we think, was asked to sing at the Metropolitan Opera House around 1892. But when disgruntled patrons found out that this was a colored artist, they wouldn't even allow her to play the roles of Aida. We can't play the dark roles. And that's what they were going to offer. She had all this success. She performed before Queen Victoria. She performed before 4 presidents of the United States. But when it came to performing at the Metropolitan Opera House, she was denied that. And so she goes on and she has this act called the Black Patty Troubadours. She doesn't like the name Black Patty because before James Brown came out with I'm Black and I'm Proud, it was very hard to call somebody black and still be standing at the end of the day. But so she learns that her managers think that we can make more money if we name you after Adelina Patti, who is the Italian-American soprano that sings all over the world. She doesn't like the name. She doesn't even sound like Adelina Patti. But so she then has to do this vaudeville show, and she sings all over the world, all over the country. She has so much money that she's making, and her white managers, of course, are taking the lion's share. And when she complains about it and she doesn't show up to certain engagements or they overbook, they take her to court, and she loses. But the fact is that they would take her to court. She was their piggy bank. And yet this woman dies a pauper, an unmarked grave. Because at that particular time, making $5,000 a week in 1892, can you imagine that?
Wow.
A black woman making that kind of money, but no one tells you about investing anything. And so, hey, easy come, easy go. When we hear about movie stars that go bankrupt and they're making $3 or $4 million a picture, why do they go bankrupt? Because what you get, you spend. I can take a meager salary of $35,000, $40,000 $45,000 and live like a queen if you know how to manage money. Of course, this is not a manage money seminar, but I'm going back to why does Sister Loretta die pauper in an unmarked grave? She gives up vaudeville because vaudeville is no longer popular at the turn of the century. You've got radio and the moving pictures. And so now, and her parents are sick, or her mother is sick, so she gives up that, and she goes to do everything that she can to take care of her parent or her mother. And when the mother dies, she's essentially, then she gets sick herself, dying of cancer. No one realizes who she is after so many years have passed. So we don't know her anymore. But my 16th opera is called Sister Loretta, the VP of vaudeville, or the VP of vaudeville. They called it the Black Patty, but for me, VP stood for Black Princess, and that was the redeeming part of that. I've asked Felix Farrar, who is here today because my violinist, Dr. Rumina Georgieva from Bulgaria, she is ill today, and he graciously came to do something for me and to take her place. So I'd like for him to come, and at this moment, to play, what are you going to play?
Lift Every Voice.
Lift Every Voice and Sing. I asked him, I said, now, tell me what you're going to play. He's going to do Lift Every Voice and Sing. I think this is very important. We call this the Black National Anthem for a reason. It is not because we're trying to divide or think that we should have two national anthems, one that salutes the country and one that salutes Black people on this side of town. It is a history story. It tells our story. And it was about this time, during the time of Sister Loretta, and all of these Black divas in about 1900, 1901, that the Johnson brothers, they write this beautiful anthem. In fact, it was James Weldon Johnson who writes the anthem, then his brother, James Johnson, he then sets it to music for these 500 school kids that they're honoring what? They're honoring Lincoln. They're honoring emancipation. And they sing this song, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Touring projects, festivals, and recording sessions. And this is another case of, all right, I'm a violinist. What can I do to diversify myself, to make myself more than what others may perceive of me to be, or the limitation of that? And so I am grateful for what you are doing for musicians around the United States. If I were to tell you, or you can most people in here know Roland Hayes, correct? I know my group knows. He was born June 3rd, 1887, and died January 1st, 1977. He was an American lyric tenor, and he traveled around the world 7 times, giving concerts and recitals. He was known for how beautiful and lyric his instrument was, yet he was rejected in America. We found that most singers at that time, and even today, if you are a classical singer, you are more successful in Europe than you are here. So he has a manager and he goes around the world, and one particular time when the Nazis were taking over Europe, and they warned him, don't go back to Germany, because after World War I, there was a bitterness against black soldiers. They didn't want to be reminded of black soldiers being in their town because of what the white soldiers had said about black soldiers. And it was very difficult where you take the racism from one country and you take it somewhere else. But they advised Roland, don't go and do another concert. Well, he was very strong. He said, I'm going anywhere. I'm going to do this concert. And I'm going to do it before the Germans. And he goes out and he stands in front, and there were Germans that out there, and they said, how dare he think that he can even master our language? It's an insult. But they came to the concert just the same, so they could boo and hiss. He stood out there for almost 15 minutes waiting for the crowd to subside. Finally, his managers took him off the stage. It's not going to go. It's not going to work. They're not going to let you sing. He was ever determined. So he goes back out there and he stands there until they quiet down. And he sings Schubert's Du bist du in perfect German. They are so taken aback that all the things and the prejudices that they had heard were dismissed. They just evaporated. And he became one of their most cherished singers. He took that challenge and made a triumph of it. I go to my second opera, The Great Divide. When I think of The Great Divide and you look in your history books, it's all about who? Lewis and Clark, crossing the Great Divide. I mean, when I grew up, I thought they were land surveyors. That's what we were taught. Now they're here to find a journey or a river that will take them from the east coast to the west coast. But what we don't hear, we hear about Sacagawea, the young Indian girl that went with them. We don't hear about the slave that went with them. His name was York. He belonged to Clark, William Clark. He hunted with them. He was one of the strongest. When the boats overturned, he jumped in the river and retrieved a lot of the material that they needed. He was given a gun. He could hunt. And when they came upon Indian tribes in the West, they were so fascinated with his skin because he was black. They honored that skin because sometimes they would paint themselves black to make themselves more, looking more fierce looking. So many times these natives would go and try to wipe the blood off his face, and they did not understand, why are you owned by a white man? And so they called him the black white man or the white black man. You belong to someone, but you should be honored. But when York returns to the East Coast, after being on this trail for 2 years, he automatically assumes Clark is going to set me free. Why? Because I've traveled free like every man here. But to his dismay, when he asks Clark, are you going to set me free? Clark interprets that as insolence. I shall lash you. I have given you an experience of a lifetime, and how dare you ask me for freedom? It would take York 11 years to become free, and almost 2 years after that, he died. The song that you will hear now by Melvin Foster tenor is called Missouri I Am. I'm the Dreamer. What is this song in The Great Divide? Missouri is the characterization, or this particular person is the characterization of the Mississippi River and the Missouri that York has traveled. And when York, in his mind, in his own dream, Missouri lets him know, you will not be free. There is no freedom for you, save none but the mighty Mississippi.
Crossing over Missouri wide, deep river, my home is over Jordan, the dreamer dreams of freedom, crossing over the other side. Roll, Jordan, roll, roll, Jordan, roll. I want to go to heaven in the morning, let me ride, but freedom ain't a-coming on the Mississippi tide. A dreamer shall face the torrent, he shall be bruised by endless strife, and he shall long for streams of mercy for himself and for his wife. No man can be free like Missouri, save none but the mighty Mississippi. Red man, white man, brown man, black man, you better wade in the water, wade in the water, wade, wade, wade.
Thank you, Dr. Foster. Most of us, even in the newer generation, younger generation, you are familiar with Marian Anderson. Marian Anderson was the first African American to actually sing for the Metropolitan Opera in 1955. But before that, the Daughters of the American Revolution rejected her singing at Constitution Hall. She was invited there by Mrs. Roosevelt in order to sing a concert. But the Daughters of the American Revolution are the granddaughters or descendants of soldiers of the Confederacy. And they said, no colored woman will ever sing in this hall. So Mrs. Roosevelt was so outraged because she herself was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So she got together with others to arrange for Marian Anderson to stand on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial to sing a recital which was broadcast by radio, but she sang before 75,000 people. When she grew up, most of the time you have this type of voice, you always began your life in the church. In the church, and one of our most beautiful hymns that's based on spiritual, Amazing Grace. So you have this contralto that has this low voice, and she's just a child, and they knew she would be something special. I don't know what your experiences are when it comes to classical music and the singers that you hear even on the stage. I know that Dressa R.G. Price, and I know that I have another friend that's in Americolor Opera, Betty Marable, and not myself so much, but we are alums of Georgia State University. Well, my experience here, I was so glad that I had gone to an undergraduate school that was a historically black college and university. Because if I had not had that experience, it would have been more difficult for me. I'm a child of the 70s, the Angela Davis stroke, and I'm black and I'm proud. And being a part of the historically black colleges of students who were very aware of racism and prejudices and those types of things. We were very much aware of our heritage. I was taught black history from the time I was in elementary school. I didn't have to teach it, I lived it. We were somehow protected by our guardians and parents because we never really left out of our neighborhoods. I never went to the back of the bus, even though there were vestiges of color only, or color in the rear, even though segregation was over, they took their time taking that down. But when I was at Georgia State University, I had a professor who was, and I knew who he was and how difficult that matriculating through Georgia State would be. But I had this sense of great self-esteem, and I studied with Lawrence Coffin, one of the great mezzo-contraltos that Georgia State has had. Great teacher, but she was very critical of me for one particular reason. She says, you could be a very successful singer. Why aren't you majoring in voice? I said, because I'm here majoring in theory, whether you like it or not. She was very snappy. She could push you in a corner with her voice and her look, but I was not intimidated with her. She actually was giving me a backdoor compliment that I could make it if I wanted to be a vocalist. But it's like I was called somewhere else. Marian Anderson always knew that she was going to be a vocalist, even though she came up in the church and they called her that baby contralto, singing amazing things.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, yes, I see.
Marian Anderson was not allowed to sing at Constitution Hall, and this beautiful concert was arranged for her at Lincoln Memorial. She stood on those steps, and even though she's been rejected by the American people for the most part, the very first thing she gives tribute to is America, and the first thing she sings is "My Country, 'Tis of Thee." way. I will record, I will perform, I will become a recital artist, I will do whatever it takes. And if it means being a church musician, there is nothing wrong with that. You make a living from that. I've been in the church all of my life, even though I've been to many, many churches, because my aunt was a very dominating woman. And whenever she didn't like the preacher, she would cuss him out and go home. And so I've been in many churches. But I learned that there was a place for me. And I became that little piano player, playing for Sunday school. So I have great respect for the church, and that she introduced me and my sister being a part of the church. Yes, Aunt Lily, I hear you. We talked about Roland Hayes. We talked about Marian Anderson. And most of us may be very familiar with Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson was a wonderful actor. He was an actor. He was a baritone. He traveled everywhere. And he rejected being pushed around by the American policies and politics and racism. And in fact, he was so vocal. In fact, he was an attorney, he was a lawyer. But they said, you're a communist. Anytime they wanted to shut somebody down in the McCarthy era, you're a communist. They took his passport from him. They wouldn't allow him to sing. And after a while, mentally, he began to crack under that pressure. And he lost a lot because he was just put on that pedestal to be knocked down. But his reputation still stands today. He was known for his role as the Othello, the black man in Shakespeare's opera. But now that black man is playing against a leading lady that is white. That was a no-no in this country. Not in the 30s, 40s, 50s, you're not doing that, but in Europe, he was successful at it. Then he came back and he did Showboat, and he was always known for that particular song. And he changed the words of it. He struggled, but he triumphed, and he struggled again. He finally loses in one end, but the reputation still stands. In honor of Paul Robeson, I'm going to ask my next singer, Michael McBride, is going to sing another dream song. It's from The Great Divide, the opera that Missouri was just in. In this particular aria, Papa Silas is in a dream. He's in York's dream. York is on his way to the West Coast with Lewis and Clark. But then York has this dream that his family is going to be free. And Papa Silas has his own dream that he's going back to Africa. And I put this with Paul Robeson because it's that type of up, down, the dreamer transformed by the dreamer, then knocked down by reality. So this is Papa Silas's dream, that one day he's going back to Africa where he came from, and he would also be free.
A new name. No, that was my slave name. I'm not the same. I want a brand new name. I want my African name.
But you ain't no African.
And you ain't got no stone. My mother, she was African born, straight from the Mendi tribe. She said her sister was to marry a king, but the slave ships came and found them, took them far away, never to be seen again. But my mother told me I was an African man, and one day my Lord gonna take me back to that land.
We could go on and on about the treasure of Black classical singers. William Warfield comes to mind, and of course, the unmatched Leontine Price was my idol. I've always wanted to sound like Leontine Price, and you know, most people think Leontine Price is still living. She's still among us. And the most gorgeous voice to me in the world, and they kind of call her the Verdian soprano. I have never seen any voice that could capture the drama of something, the smallest quality of something, and it was just beautiful because she actually became the very first African-American woman to be a regular artist at the Metropolitan Opera House. And although Marian Anderson opened that door, Marian was not comfortable on the stage. She had made her life as a recital artist, and that's where she wanted to be. But Leontine, I would follow her everywhere. I saw her in Aida. I went to the Fox when she did her last recital there, and if she came back, if it cost me $200, I would go see her. I would spend $200 on Prince. I had friends who do that too. But it was something about her that inspired so many of us. And I'm a lyric soprano. I don't sound anything like her, the weight of her voice, but it was something, or she inspired so many of us. She and William Warfield were known for, they actually married, but playing Porgy and Bess, that seemed to have been the roles that you could get in, but a lot of times we got trapped into the role of Porgy and Bess. That if you were a classically trained singer, you're gonna cut your teeth on Porgy and Bess, but you never go anywhere. That's where you stay. So some classically black singers refuse to take the role. I adore Gershwin's music. He merged the classical style with jazz style, actually imitating writers like William Grant Steele. And he gives credit to that. And so that's one of America's favorite operas, and I don't take anything away from it, but we do so much more. In my mission, when I organized the Americolor Alliance, I was determined that the roles that my singers would have, and it's not what I call a black opera company, because there again, I'm not in a vacuum, but the roles that I create, the stories that I write, are about historical things that you don't know a lot of. My second opera was The Hermans. Alonzo Herman was the first black millionaire of the South. And he became wealthy by cutting white people's hair at 66 Peachtree Street in this barbershop called the Crystal Palace. After the race riots of 1906 in downtown Atlanta, they crashed his shop and killed several black men out on the street. He closed that shop and opened the Atlanta Life Insurance Company and built a mansion over there by Marshmallow College. It's still still stands today. That was a phenomenal feat for him to do that. Well, to me, that's a story worth telling. So my second opera was The Hermans. My third opera was called La Roche. And who was La Roche? La Roche was the only black passenger on the ill-fated Titanic. How many of you knew there was a black passenger?
Nope.
Woo! And when I wrote the opera, I was accused of being a revisionist. Some radio person got up and said, there's no such thing as a black man on the Titanic. I said, all right, you look him up. In fact, don't turn on your phones afterwards. I want you to go look up Joseph La Roche. It's Joseph Bennekin La Roche. And you will find that here's this black man who is a Haitian. And he goes, he's a wealthy family, they send him to France to be an engineer. And he marries a French woman. You're talking about 1912, and you come back on a Titanic, and you're on a ship with rich Americans that they cannot understand this. He was shunned, but he was a kind of an arrogant kind of guy too, because he wasn't supposed to be on Titanic. He was actually on the French Cunard, and he was a first-class passenger on that ship. And the arrogance, I would say, in him, maybe it was just the love of his children. He had 2 daughters and a son on the way. And since he could not find work, his mother sent him tickets to return to Haiti. And when he discovered that his children could not sit at the dining room table with him, he says, well, I can't travel with you. I need another ship. And they said, well, you got the Titanic is going to be here. And you can get the second class. Your money will not buy you a first class ticket on the Titanic. It will buy you second class. He boards that Titanic, and they never recover him. He makes sure that his wife and his 2 children get in lifeboat 14, and we never see him again. But it's worth talking about La Roche. That's my third opera. But I'll go back to my 7th opera, when we talk about dreams. Madam C.J. Walker. She says, her lawyer, Madam C.J. was very smart. She did not have an education, what we call even high school education. But what Madam C.J. did was surround herself with smart people who could conduct her business. Because once she died, one of those husbands that she failed to divorce came back to say, I guess I've got some money coming. But she had a lawyer called Freeman Ransom, who was also, she was the godmother of his children, and he made sure that her money went exactly where it was supposed to be. And so she surrounded herself. So now, here is Madam Walker trying to explain to a lawyer, look, Ransom, I have a dream that I'm going to discover something. This dream from Africa said, I'm going to be rich. And Ransom, who is from the real world, that doesn't make sense, madam. The only way that you can be rich is what? To work hard, to do your due diligence. She has a dream. He doesn't see it, he sees it later. Ransom, I had a dream.
Ransom, I had a dream. Ransom, I had a dream.
Dear madam, are you all right?
This dream was best to
What kind of stress is this that makes her believe in such a dream? Madam, you need to rest.
Ransom, it's more than a dream.
If you believe
It's
it,
a
madam.
vision, I clearly see.
If you believe give us hope on a rainy day. But when the morning comes, sweet dreams do turn into meaningless memories, and at the end of the day, all that matters is what you've earned by the sweat of your brow, the strength of your hand, the dust on your feet, the fire in your heart. If you want to move forward, madam, you will have to travel down the narrow track. Dreams will take you from the cotton fields to freedom. Can't plow straight and keep on looking back. If you want to have a golden future, you will have to stay the course both night and day. Never let a dream distract you from reality. Keep the faith and never lose your way.
It's more than a dream.
If you believe it,
If I believe it, I do believe it. It's
Thank you, Ms. Gary. Dr. Foster. We have all heard of Jessie Norman and Kathleen Battle, both successful classical singers, recording artists, opera singers all over the world. It's like reaching for the stars with Kobe Bryant and all your big athletes out there. Every singer thinks, I'm going to be that star, I have that phenomenal voice. But so many of us already out there. So what do we do with our talents? We do what we can. We find where we fit, or we create something. I did not wait for anyone to perform my operas. I founded a company, Americolor Opera, and sometimes it's Americolor Opera and Theater Arts, because we do plays and we do historical narratives and reenactments. And I remember distinctly, after I had done my first opera, I had no intention of doing another. That was not what it was about. I was just going to celebrate that 50, and then it was too much work trying to put that opera together. You almost have to have, it's like financing a war to do an opera. I could not do it anymore. It was joyful. I got all the buzz out of it and satisfaction, and then my opera singers came up to me and said, what's next? What's next? And I realized somebody's depending upon me to make a difference.
Yeah.
Then I realized, no, Florence Cutler, I am not that opera singer that's going to Indiana University or the one that will go to Europe. I'm the composer that will write opera. And I will write opera for the singers that are so hungry right here with no place to go. They don't really need me for all of that, but to have a company where they are welcome, and I am writing history that's American history and Afrocentric history, said a lot to me. But that's not all I write. There are issues that I want to address, like breast cancer. Breast cancer affects Black women more than any other group or ethnic group in this country. Why? A lot of things: stress, DNA, poor health care, poor diet, who knows? Combination of things. I wrote this opera called Pink Lady. Pink Lady can be of any particularly addressed a person that was very special to me. My best friend died of breast cancer. And she died of breast cancer when she discovered it, the lump in her breast. She tried to ignore it. Her mother had breast cancer, and she saw that at that particular time, the chemotherapy and all of the atrocity of the illness itself. So she had already made a pact with herself, if I ever get breast cancer or any other type of cancer, I am not going to go through that. I would rather die on my own terms. So when it actually happens, that's exactly what she commits to do. And when she shares it with her husband and he discovers it too, they make a pact. We're not going to tell our friends, and I was her best friend. I felt slighted. You're not going to tell me so that I can help you with that suffering and I can hold your hand. Don't I deserve that after so much friendship? No. She was trying to spare me. So the day that she dies, her husband calls me and said, if you want to see Annette again, you need to come down to the hospital now because she's about to take her last breath. I was just knocked back. Then there was a young woman that was another friend of a musician. She also had breast cancer in her early or late 20s. She's still dealing with it now in her 40s. Her name was Rochelle. Well, the one that's in the opera is Rochelle, which means a Jewish name meaning sacrificial lamb. Rochelle, being a young woman, meets the person that I put in the opera. I'm trying to figure out how can I deal with the grief and the anger that's in me. And I did the very best thing that I could. Write it in the musical form and let it be a teachable opera. And when I did this opera, I had a medical panel on the stage, and I had survivors in the audience, a mother and son who had breast cancer. And I felt somehow redeemed that her death meant something now. And the young lady that comes to the door of the woman who's not going to say anything, her name is Adoria, that's right, I named her. She comes to the door, and Rochelle, played by Thresa R.G. Price, is saying, I'm here collecting and giving out pamphlets for breast cancer. And the woman is just, how did you know that's what I had? It was like God had sent her there. So in this particular song, she says, don't be afraid. But the don't be afraid is not just for the breast cancer. The don't be afraid is for those who are looking and trying to pursue your dreams, whether they are the operatic, the classical singer, whether it's an engineer, whether it's an artist, whether it's James up there in the sounding booth, wherever you are, there's a dream if you're not afraid to pursue it. Opera singers, there's a dream. There's a dream. Violinist, Mr. Gerard, there's a dream. Audience, there's a dream. Don't be afraid.
If you let it rise to the top of life, even in the valley low, I am not afraid to go. I am not afraid. God is on my side. Don't be afraid of life. Just keep yourself from fear. You've got everything to live for. You've got everything to take you all the way. Don't say you have no time. Just go and ease your mind. All you have to do is go inside. They'll take care of you and they will guide you all the way through. Don't you be afraid. Don't you be
Being a composer means that everything that you are, from a church musician, popular pianist, to singer, classical, it became infused in me, and I guess you can hear that in all the music. That's very, very different from each one. I don't really have a particular signature all the time. I wanted to express what the character is living at a particular time, whether that's romantic, whether it's classical, whether it's jazz, whether it is gospel, whether it is popular music, because all of that has a message. My last song is a group song, and actually I know this is the Lenten season for many of us, but this particular song, it comes from a cantata, not the opera, and it's called Judas Was a Weak Man. And it comes from the cantata called Judas Iscariot. When we think of Judas, we'll say that he's a Judas or he's a Brutus. Those are your people that betray people. And in this particular song, Judas was a weak man. I have all 5 singers here and plus the violinist. There's more than a message here. It shows how tantalizing it's difficult to resist. You can call it sin or temptation. Somebody tells you that you need to be on a diet and you shouldn't eat sweets or such. And yet, if that donut is on that table, you're going to reach for that donut. It is very difficult for us to pass the donut. I have had that happen to me, and the church is bad about putting donuts and stuff out. And then you say, well, I know I don't need it, so you walk past. And you put on brakes and you think about how can I talk myself into getting that donut. You say, okay, it's just one donut. One donut. So you take the donut. That's what you do. Well, that's what the temptation is. And so when we talk about Judas in the cantata, every time there's a song about Judas, it's set to a secular rhythm. And in this particular rhythm, it is the tango. And when I look out in the audience a lot of times and they hear the tango, I feel you dancing. That dancing is like, oh, I'm being drawn in. I'm being drawn in. So I'd like to conclude with Judas Was a Weak Man from the Judas Iscariot cantata, and hope that you've enjoyed the presentation. And then there will be a few minutes that you can ask questions. So now, while I was talking, they should have been up here. How many times did I say Judas Iscariot? I hope that you have enjoyed this particular presentation.
God sent his Son into the world to redeem the world. He had 12 disciples who followed him dearly, save one. Judas was a weak man who had worldly visions.
Judas was a weak man. He did not know that Jesus came for just to save him. And so he kissed the face of Jesus and betrayed him. And then he died upon his shame. His shame. Judas was a weak
so very much. Can we have another round of applause?
I wanted to take the chance to offer the audience an opportunity to ask any questions they might have,
And a microphone to come down there and share with you. I do want to get started with a question that I wanted to pose, and that will let you think. We talked briefly about the idea that this entire symposium is based on the theme of the Black working class
challenges and triumphs. And I really want to talk about, if anyone has something to say about the artist as, the Black artist as a working class driver of the economy, the revolution, the history, all of this. You, of course, addressed that candidly, Dr. Willis, but also if the artists want to talk at all about what that's like to be considered working class. Do you consider yourself working class? Do the people you sing about consider themselves working class? Anything you'd like to talk about that has to do with that? If anyone wants to jump on.
Like Dr. Foster, because it's been a
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Is this live?
It will be.
If not, that's fine, I'll project.
What do you do for solos?
Gotcha.
The solo.
Over here.
Yeah.
Yes. I can take stage direction. Not just Black musicians, but any musicians who are trying to make a career and provide for themselves in general. It's a hard road to hoe, if you understand that phrase. Because you are committed to the craft, you're committed to the art form, but you want to feed yourself, you want to clothe yourself, you want to have shoes to wear, and a roof over your head. And so you've got to be quite the entrepreneur for being able to manage your business. Quite often when people decide they're going to pursue a career in music, they don't do a formal pathway, which is formal training that, like Dr. Willis described of her past. But they just set out. I like to do music, and I'm going to make this happen. I will say that it is a harder pathway to pursue without the education, because with the education comes several different skill sets, which make you far more marketable than without them. And it also opens up possible streams of income for you. So it is that the person who's going to be doing this career they won't be relying solely on their performing. They have to think of other, passive ways of earning income, but also other ways of using the skills that they have to do so. We are working class individuals. I think that, should the day come where all the working class decide to band together, whether that's in a union or some kind of representative group, I think we would see some things change. And I would say one of those things would be, being able to apply for Social Security. As a person who is self-employed, unless you do all the right kinds of things to make that happen, it becomes very difficult to count that income for that particular social safety net. And I think it was put in place for something just like that. But I'll stop there because I'm a professor, so I can talk all day.
That was great, thank you, Dr. Foster, but Felix Farrar, who has gotten his own company together to contract musicians that they can make a living. Would you come forward?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I just wanted to add to what Melvin was saying. I am a violinist, but through what he was talking about in terms of being able to look at other areas of the music, in terms of music, I won't even go into performing arts, but in terms of music, there are 20 categories within the music industry. when you talk about copyright, songwriting, all that kind of stuff. So that's, as a performer, this is just one thing. But when it goes back to education, if you know about theory, if you know about songwriting, if you know about the business of music, that's where, I can talk about Stevie Wonder, I can talk about Lady Gaga, I can talk about the Isley Brothers. All of them were, even Maurice White from Earth, Wind & Fire, they were trained musicians. Charles Stepney was one of the greatest assistants of Maurice White with Earth, Wind & Fire because he was songwriting. Stevie Wonder has Obite Music, it was his own publishing company. So music-wise, as a freelancer, for me, I have an arts management company. I contract a lot of musicians for different kinds of projects. And for me, that has been my push. That has kept me going because there's a world of musicians that from all over the country that I do different projects for, whether it be TV shows, recordings, or gigs, or weddings, or what have you. So that's what's really, really pushed me. I mean, I have a church job at First Baptist Church with Charles Stanley. He used to be the pastor down the concert master of the orchestra there. So through that, I've done what? Just being associated in that church. Let me just say that was the blessing all of it itself. And I have not been in New York all my life. I was in New York, on school in New York, and moved here. And through that, I met Sharon from being at Clark Atlanta, because I even taught, and as a matter of fact, I'm still on the faculty at Clark Atlanta University in Morehouse. So spreading and networking was what really was the push for me, but I did that as soon as I landed foot here in Atlanta. I knew from being in New York, you gotta network. Yeah. And as a musician, as a freelance musician, working, if you don't have a job at a college, or if you're not in a public school system where you have all the benefits, I work as a true freelance musician. I travel, I go to Spain, I go wherever I'm needed. But it's not necessarily just that opportunity. That opportunity, I'm always networking to create the next one. Thank you.
I'm going to say that there are, on this roll over here, there are people that didn't major in music. Deborah Herman is a retired registered nurse. You have a computer, a software programmer, Michael McBride. They don't major in music. And then you've got a musician who majored in music, but she worked for the IRS. But my company opens its arms to all of these singers, no matter what level they are on. There is something that is there from what I am doing. And no, I can't pay your rent, but I can address the yearning that you have to participate and to be true to the gift that you have.
Thank you, thank you. Jillian, does this work?
No.
Okay. I'm afraid that the folks online won't hear me, but I'm going to use my teacher voice.
So thank you for that, and the performance teacher in me says double thank you for all of that, because I think our students often need to hear that. Questions? Anyone have a question for anyone up on stage?
Don't be shy.
I did want to also introduce Dr. Kimberly Bennekin. She is the other chair of the Bennekin Symposium, and her husband is who the symposium is named.
Thank you so much for this. And thank you for putting Leontine Price into your presentation, because I was born in Laurel, and my mother's side of the family is from Laurel, and Leontine Price's mother delivered my mother. She was a baby.
Oh,
wow. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about the opera singers, up and coming. You never really hear about young people majoring in music to sing opera. Is that a downturn, or has it always been like that? And how can we encourage more young people to pursue opera, careers in opera?
Well, I'll have to bring Dr. Foster back up, but now, historically, when we go to college, there's a foundation of music that you must study. We study the Italian art songs, the German lieder, the French melody, the spirituals. That is your foundation. You have to do those things. But the average person that comes through now, a lot of them want to go into commercial music, or they're going to go into music theater, or whatever. But I still think that it needs to be a foundation. Everybody does not want to sing opera. I don't care whether you're black or white. And sometimes we're resentful when we have to learn things. And then the teacher has to answer. When Dr. Foster, when you're teaching your students these Italian art songs. Did you get the question? Why should I learn this? I'm not going to sing this.
Yes. Yes, I do get that question. And my response is, one, their fundamentals of good singing are captured in the repertoire. And there's nothing like having the confidence in your competency of being a good singer, regardless of what you might be asked, what style you might be asked to sing. The classics provide that strong foundation. But you asked another question. Somebody asked a question about how do you get people to major in opera. Well, there are two things here. When I was coming up, the opera that did it for me, well, there were two actually. It was hearing Porgy and Bess as a middle schooler, junior high schooler. But then I also got to see the Marriage of Figaro, Mozart's Marriage of Figaro, with the Charlotte Opera. And I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. And seeing Porgy and Bess, I was up in the nosebleeds, right? And I could see and hear those voices as if they were right next to me. And for me, that captured my imagination and my curiosity, because it sure seemed to me that the people who were on the stage had superpowers. Because they had these incredible voices, and it didn't hurt that I knew one of the singers. One of them was a high schooler who went to school with my older brother, and then later went to school with me at decent school, but another story. The other part about this is the narratives that you see portrayed on the stage, right? It's easy for a white child to listen to opera, go and look at people on the stage, and go, wow, I can see myself up there, right? Because you're seeing your ancestry, in many cases, being celebrated on that stage. And so the point that Dr. Willis made earlier about Porgy and Bess, right? Well, Porgy and Bess is a great opera, but it's not the only one you want to commit your life to doing as a black performer. So what's incredible about the works that Dr. Willis has created is that in every single production, a child of color can look on stage, see themselves reflected, and say, hey, there's a possibility for me. And there are other composers. Dr. Willis isn't the only composer who's doing this. There are others. We just don't, society hasn't been very kind in that regard. But I think that the more we have companies like Americolor who are willing to stand the test of time and bring in younger singers to shepherd in this repertoire, then we will build in the legacy of students of color being able to look on stage and go, hey, you know what, I want to do that. And I think I will go to school and major in, these days they call it vocal literature and performance, but it's all classically based, so it's opera singing. And make a go of it. The critical thing for young singers of color is having opportunities to develop the craft. And so you've got to find a place to do that. And and it's difficult. It's difficult when you are a person of color trying to step into the life of someone who is Northern European.
Even when the roles are clearly defined as a person of color, you're going to find that person, that European, will be painted down.
That's right.
To look that role like the role of Aida or Lockmaid, which is clearly, I remember being at the Civic Center when they had the operas there, and they were doing Aida, and they did not have enough soldiers on the stage. If they came out and got the football players of color to come on the stage, they didn't have time to paint them down. And I don't know what happened backstage, but they put the outfits on and they were there as guards. All we had to do was just stand there. But that just goes to show you that, okay, we are needed. There are roles already out there for us, but they're never given to us in mainstream opera.
Yeah. Do you want to take this? Because I could go on forever on this.
You need it for the
Yeah. Okay, I need my steps today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I did not know what I was in for. I expected to be entertained, but it has been so much more, and the education, oh my gosh. My youngest is at Florida A&M. He's a music industry major. A lot of people in the family are curious about how he's going to keep the roof over his head, and I have hope in him. I'm married to a musician. His father is a musician. Was looking for a violinist a couple of weeks ago, so I need to get your information to perform with him. But my question is, I have a middle son who he sings all around the house in the operatic kind of, and how does the person get engaged? Do you have to audition? How do you select your?
All colleges, all music departments have audition days. You contact that, or you look on that website, or you contact the chair to see when the audition is going to take place. But before he does that, most people think just because I sing, I can be a music major. That's not always the case. Or I sing in my daddy's choir. It takes more than that. And so a lot of times administrators always think, well, even parents, oh, I know you're not going to be a music major. You're not going to ever make a living from that. And the parent who's talking to me, I'm the chair. I'm making a living. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm not making a living. Yes, I have to do 2 or 3 different things, but you've got to be committed to it. But music is not just singing. It's the theory. It's the history. It's learning all kinds of things and opportunities and doing recitals at the same time doing the general education. Most HBCUs that I know are liberal arts. That means that just because you major in music, that doesn't make you a ready for real-time profession. That's just part of what you do. I know people that don't major in music at all, and they're successful at what they do. I mean, Michael Jackson, any of them, they can still make music by doing not being a major. But if that's the emphasis, I also say don't wait till you get to a college to find a teacher. Find a voice teacher who is teaching what you want, and be prepared, because the more literature you know when you step through that door, you're going to get that, not only that scholarship. And I will also say for instrumentalists, anyone who plays an oboe and a bassoon, you're going to get a scholarship, because that's the most difficult and French horns to play. So band directors are always looking for those instruments. But going back to the vocalist, at least in that classical arena, find a voice teacher. Okay. That voice teacher will guide, because you've got a lot of voice teachers that teach on college level, but they have private studios, and they would love to guide students that are really interested. It is difficult teaching voice students who don't want to be in your studio. They don't want to do Call Romeo and they're sick of Call Romeo and but that is part of what we do. So I would say find a teacher.
So you identify, how does a person become involved with Americolor? Do you?
Oh, yeah, well, you audition. I mean, my administrative assistant is different from You get her number. Okay. And in fact, we have email too, but you get her number, but a lot of times people will call. We got a production that's coming up. This summer, it's my 13th opera that was never premiered. I had given it to someone at Clark, but they never had the time to finish it. And so Americolor has to take that on, because this is our 25th anniversary coming up, and all 16 operas have to have been done, because they're included in a legacy book that will go all over the country. And so if you're interested in that, we're going to do that opera in July. It's kind of like a Christmas in July. It is a Christmas opera called The Night Watchman. And it's like a Mall of the Night Visitors in a sense, but now it's a universal opera. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, brown, because it doesn't matter. it's an opera that teaches a lesson. We're dealing with a person who's been a thief all of his life, and now he's committed to watching Christmas Eve for the rest of his life until he can find a bigger thief than he is. So there's a lesson in there, but I think that you would enjoy that. But Deborah Recruitment is the one that you will see on stage if you want to become involved in this company.
I also want to give a plug that we do have a music department here.
Yes.
We do teach vocal music. We're fine arts, so we do theater, music theater.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just give them a little bit. We are far over time, and I want to honor all the folks who are here and not abuse that time that they have given us today. So thank you all so much on stage for being here. It has been a joyful, joyful day. And thank you for all who came. And yes, apparently our development director would like a photograph with all of you. We would mind hanging out for a moment. Our professional photographer is here. Everyone else, please make sure students you have logged out on the pin. And we have a reception right with some cookies and donuts, I think. When you said that, Dr. Willis, I thought, oh, we're going to offer sweets to them. Thank you for coming. If you're here, we'd love to have you in the photo. James, if you're close by, I can do something to Mike Sands. He just dropped his feet off. So, well, you said, I do it first. Okay. Is it with co-chairs? Did you get everybody in?
All right, yeah, let me get you guys, let me have
Can
some
we get some
gentlemen
more
on this
lines,
side,
everybody
so
up
we
there?
can ease it out a little bit.
Mel, let's say a gentleman, you need to come back.
And I use that term loosely.
Yeah, that's good, Bill? That's,
Yeah,
Mr. Farrar.
I'll get on the end.
All right, yeah.
Is that cool?
That's cool. Yeah.
all right, so what we're gonna do, from, Kim, facing that way, please, no, the other way, there you go, you guys kinda come in.
Take
You
up
guys
space.
come in this way a little bit, let me have you, ma'am, just face that way a bit, all right, now you guys can squeeze in a little bit.
I love it.
All right, great. And we're gonna do this on 3. So when you hear 2, please open your eyes and smile. 1, 2, 3. Great. One more. Awesome. Thank you. All right, who else?